Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this amazing post-Thanksgiving Friday night on the Franchising 360 show. I am Tim Parmeter, and with me, as always, is Danielle Wright.
Hello. Two hands this time.
Oh, we mixed it up a little bit. But we are the Franchising 360 show, and we are going to take a 360-degree look at the world of franchising. Danielle has been on the franchisor side for about 15 years, working for multiple brands, and has her own company called Create a Shift, which works with franchisors to kind of create a shift, ideally a positive one in their growth. I've got a company called Fran Coach, and we help people find the best franchise to own, and things that we both hear over our years. I have a job. I don't know. I want to get out of my job.
Right.
I'm scared to death to leave my job because they do this thing called pay me.
Yes.
And that can be scary, but I really want control of my life and a business. Can I keep my job and be a franchise owner?
Yes.
That's a wrap for the show.
There you go.
Perfect.
Done.
So maybe we'll dive a little deeper into that, right? So, term that comes up a lot.
This kind of turned back around at you. Normally, when we're talking to people about a franchise, they've either worked with a consultant or a coach or someone in your capacity, trying to help them find the right fit. If they come to us, what we call organically, there's a whole sidebar conversation about that. But they're likely to be employed, but there's something pulling at them. Like, I'm tired of making other people money. And I talked to a guy today that I've been given this project and they're not moving on it. So I'm just sitting here. I was like, well, some people would say they just stay there and keep taking the money. And now you're doing what you should be doing, like saying what other options are out there for my time.
Yeah.
So in your world, you probably have more experience with the conversations with people that are, hey, you found me. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers are getting the whole LinkedIn messages. Hey, you have a great title, great background. What does your world look like when you're talking to somebody about that? Yeah,
I think there's the fear, right? And a lot of times the fear of the unknown of, again, leaving that job, but I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled working hard for somebody else, the freedom, the control, all of those things.
And income caps, right? Can I make more?
Right. Well, we had John Duffy on last week at Citywide, right? And talking about, he had a good corporate job, but he's built this massive empire from a franchise standpoint, worked himself kind of out of the day-to-day. He's an executive role. His son's now involved, right? All of those things. And so the thing with semi-absentee, I think there's a few things.
Oh, he used a word.
I used the word. Semi-absentee owner is, number one, if we were to survey 10 franchisors,
yes,
and ask them, what does semi-absentee mean to you? We would get
10 different answers.
At least 10 different answers.
At least.
Right?
10 zors, 10 answers. Okay, got it.
So I think
not math genius, but
understand. Well, they're like, it could be this or it could be that.
And the operative word is could.
It always kind of comes back to building this out. What does somebody really want? But the short answer is yes, it is possible. Not every franchise is open to it.
Right.
And then again,
and technically, most franchises are not open to it. They give you the business as if there's a section in their document that says you will operate this business in its entirety and to the fullest extent, which means you're going to own or operate this sucker.
Right. And you can do it. It's just the business is always running full time.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest piece. It's not like, I'll get around to it whenever. We just have to then put somebody in place that's kind of that manager that's running. If I'm not going to be full time running it, I need to put somebody there.
And that's what classifies as a semi-absentee.
Right.
Like if you work a 40-hour week and you want to work 20 hours, well, someone's got to figure out the other 20 hours, right? So where does that pop into? Hence the question behind having a job. Like, can I keep a job? Well, I know you hate this, but the question's back is, can you?
Yeah.
Can you? I don't know. I don't know you all that well, Tim Parmeter. Can you keep your job?
And those are things that I think we'll talk to our team about. Is we had a Fran Coach, we had a client recently that we actually gave the challenge of, I want you to take the next week and not have any more franchise or conversations with franchisors.
Okay.
And just, can you find brands she was looking at were probably 15 to 20 hours that they Needed
devoted
an owner,
time.
right?
Okay.
So can you have your job and still find that 15 to 20 hours a week? Number one, can you find the time? Then number two, if you can, do you want to spend it on a business versus whatever else you might be doing? So let's talk about some of the things like the time commitment, right? From a franchisor and franchise owner standpoint.
Well, what the expectation is and what the
expectations and what you can do, and some of the other things that you need to think about. So we're going to dive more into how you can keep your job and kind of get a little side gig, side hustle thing as a franchise owner. We're going to do that next on the Franchising 360 show. All right, we are back on the Franchising 360 show, and we are talking about semi-absentee franchise ownership and what that's all about and if it's possible. So
yes,
we know it's possible.
Yes,
right?
It is possible.
There's a lot of things to kind of think about with this from a time commitment, from a franchisor. Not every franchise is okay with this.
Correct.
Right? And even when they are, maybe they're really focused on it, or maybe we can kind of do it. So that can factor in as well too.
I think it comes from a support mechanism, right? Like think you're buying into a franchise. We like to say the words awarded and all the fluffy, nice stuff, but it's a transaction you're buying with the expectation that the franchise system is going to support you as the owner, not some manager that you have put in place, not some part-time, full-time person. It's that their legal requirement to you is to support you in the operation of that franchise business. Right. So when you start changing that model per se, it's another thing that franchises don't necessarily like is like, hey, this isn't have it your way. This is the way that works and it's documented. We'd like you to do it that way. Yeah. But as people have asked for flexibility, and to your point, and I wanted to hear like what clients of yours say about this, but when you want something and you want to have it, creating that opportunity to be able to be semi-absentee is a barrier of entry for a lot of people.
And if it gets them in and it gives them a chance to diversify, right? And maybe start planning that exit strategy out of the corporate world with a little bit more of a safety net of just like going
right. We all have bills. Your bills don't stop just because all of a sudden I want to do something different. It's like that's the biggest, I would ask you, that's probably the biggest hook for most of your clients in the Fran Coach world is I don't want to lose my income. Right. And we've talked about on previous episodes, like what you think your salary isn't really what your bring home is.
But you're still bringing home something. And especially maybe you're the only income producer in the family. That can factor in. And yes, we can get into funding and how we can do all of that, all of those things.
All of that stuff. But the fundamentals of it.
Right. If we're going to be semi-absentee, like some of the things we always talk about with people is one, first, how much time can you dedicate to the business?
Right.
And usually you'll hear, and again, there's nothing that's like, I don't want to spend any time. Then go buy some real estate, right? Or buy a lottery ticket, some stock.
Call your stockbroker.
Something.
Right.
Maybe 8 to 10 hours a week is probably the low end. The very low end. And some might.
A different type of business.
Right.
Like we haven't even broached that yet.
And some may get 20 to 25. So our question is always going to be, we're not going to don't worry about what's out there. How much time can you spend?
Yeah.
Right. And you tell me however much, Danielle, how much time could you spend on this?
Like if you think about the hour that you're surfing Instagram from 7 to 8, could you answer some emails?
Right.
Could you do some task lists?
Right. And I think that's the other thing too, is that it does not have to be.
And I just dated myself with the Instagram
those. Well, how about my MySpace account?
Oh, okay. Right? There you go.
Hey, Tom, nice to see you. The time you're spending doesn't have to be at the location of the business if there is a location. Right. The main thing you're doing is you're managing the manager who's running the day-to-day.
And depending upon the type of business model, I'm going to take it one step further. There's some that don't have that management. There are some that are seasonal businesses that you operate for a certain period of time. Ones that are weekend businesses. Maybe that's something that you want to have saw one the other day. It's called King of Pop. Yes, I just did that. They're out of Atlanta. They're just a cute little cart with popsicles, and you go to events and you go to soccer meets and you do those things. But that's when you said side hustle, I'm like, that's a side hustle.
Right. That's not necessarily going to get that transition out.
Right. But it could be the step 2 transition for someone that's a little bit apprehensive about having extra time. I mean, I recently had someone say, hey, I've got 3 kids. They are heavily involved in extracurricular activities. I want to do this, but I also want a balance of my time. And I think it was key for me to remind this person is that you can bring on support, and you should.
Yeah.
If you want to be semi-absentee, this is not something it's something that if you're going to choose to do it that way, go with the end in mind. You want someone to be running that for you. And if this is an investment opportunity, you want someone to be running that for you. So get them early and have them go along with you on this journey as you grow this business opportunity.
And you may have somebody that you already know that you want them to plug in there. But if not, those franchises that are open to the semi-absentee are going to have those resources to help you.
Or other franchise owners, right? Like, it's not always how the franchise is going to lay that out for you, because operationally, they're going to want you to run it day in, day out.
Right.
But there are franchise owners that have had adaptive business models to what the franchise provides. And that's something that you learn more out of your franchise community than necessarily what you may get from the franchisor.
Right. And some of those things that we're doing from a time perspective, when there is that manager in place, some of the other things that can come up for that owner that they need to be cognizant of, traits and things like that.
Yeah.
Let's hit those up. Kind of what things do you need to be good at or be aware of to be a semi-absentee owner? Let's hit that up when we come back on the Franchising 360 show. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 show. This is the Black Friday edition.
Oh, good call. Good job.
Ooh, boy, the shopping today was...
Yeah, I had you up at, no time.
Yes, and bought almost everything for...
Nothing.
The children for Christmas.
I didn't think you liked Black Friday.
I don't like... No.
I thought you were more of a Cyber Monday kind of guy.
I'm more like, can you just buy everything and put my name on it?
Yeah,
type of thing.
Give me the credit card, let's go.
Perfect.
That's where this episode's going.
So,
you want to keep your job and still spend money? Here you
keep your job and keep spending money. The semi-absentee owner.
Yes.
So, what are some things that I think I can keep my job, or want to keep my job and have a franchise? Any sort of traits or skills that come to mind? Besides
the figure it out.
Always follow a plan, figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
Figure it out. If a thing comes in before you got to figure it out. I think people just have to know, probably more so, what I'm not good at.
Right.
More so than what I am good at. Because if you really, like you said, you reflected with someone, said, hey, stop, look and see how much time you have. If you really step back and say, I really don't like doing this. Could I do it? It's like when we had our franchises, I hated payroll. I hated doing payroll. I hated looking at the time clocks. I hated making sure everybody was in where they needed to be when they were supposed to be. I just firmly believe everybody should be honest. Yeah. And it was the thing that I hated the most, but I gladly would pay for someone else to do it.
Right.
And it took the most amount of my time. So I wasn't able to do my day job because I'm over here agonizing about payroll.
Right.
So I think understanding that those are the things you don't want to do, and can you source them somewhere else through a third party? Or is that someone I need to bring in on my team as an employee to handle?
Or maybe that's something the franchisor has. And I think just in general, what are you good at and where do you need extra help? Maybe that is something, maybe the franchisor, they got a little more support from me here.
Yeah.
That's helpful. We had somebody a while back was a pilot, and one of the franchises that he was looking at really had a great call center to help with that. So there's some things from that standpoint, but I think you really have to be good at and comfortable with delegating, because you're not going to be there to make every decision.
Funny that you said that. I've had a lot of people come to me and they are, I really want to know how to do all of the things. Really? Do you? Is that really what you want to do? Yes. Great. You should still bring a buddy.
Right.
In a buddy system, bring someone along on the journey, because there is going to be a situation in your life, especially if you're keeping a job, because your employer is expecting you to work.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a thing. They're paying you, right? I haven't been employed in a while, so I don't know what that looks like. So the reality is you have committed time to an employer, but now you've also committed time to a business.
Right.
How are you gonna divide all of that time? There's only so much time in a day, and then guess what? You got kids, you got life, you got older parents, you've got life, right? So how do you budget all of that.
And you're always going to, you should always know what's going on in your business and you're going through training and all of that, but you've got to be able to kind of let that person or persons in your business that are truly there all day, you've got to be able to trust them and be able to delegate to them with that. And I think the other thing we talk about a lot when people, like, it's time, how much time per week can you spend on this? But also that accessibility, right? So if you're the semi-absentee owner and I'm your manager, and at 10 in the morning I call you and I can't figure something out, or I need,
and I can't get a hold of you, right?
Like maybe you're in a meeting right at 10,
right?
But can you call me back at 11, right? Or is it going to be the next
5 o'clock, or the next day, or whatever that may be?
And it doesn't matter what the answer is, but it's one of those like self-reflection things. You've got to be like, no, I'm pretty good within a couple hours. And the client I referenced earlier, when we literally gave them that exercise of think about the time, they had 3 days a week where they were in an office and really not accessible. And so in their mind, that became kind of a challenge of like, I'm completely tuned out.
Doesn't mean you can't find a business, just maybe the one she was looking at were not going to match that expectation.
And again, you've got also the time, the accessibility, and then am I comfortable
with the options, yes.
Right. And then being able to find that franchise that can show you how they can kind of help with where you are. You need a little extra help.
So what would you tell a client if they were, hey, I have a job. I like the idea of this. Thanks for the conversation in and around it. What's their homework? What is something that our viewers could be doing now if they're thinking about this?
I think first and foremost is time, right? How much time can you devote?
So basically like a food journal, like document all your time.
A little. That was really the homework we gave this person. It was, whether you're driving to work or you're home at night, can you literally go, from 6 to 7, I could do this, right? I could check emails, I could check metrics, that accessibility during the day for whatever. And then I think also, you talked about things you don't want to do, hugely important. Is there anything that you want to do? And maybe you like going to a networking luncheon or something like that. You want to be all logoed up with your stuff. Those are things that you can do too. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of a couple of those other things that maybe you can do, but still keeping your job and still building this business.
Yeah, so, I'm all in for positivity. Let's go.
Let's do that here on the Franchising 360 show when we come back. And we are back on the Franchising 360 show talking about semi-absentee ownership, fact or fiction.
Really?
Okay, not really, but we know it's not fiction. We know it's fact. There's a lot of things to think about with this, and you have something super profound to go into.
Do I?
I don't know. I was hoping so.
I think the place that I was going to go is we hear semi-absentee, but we also hear the word passive.
Passive.
Tell me what that means to you, Tim Parmeter.
I think that's somebody that is not going to be a franchise owner because they're thinking I don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Right. And so, or semi-absentee, semi-passive, like you got to work. And
you got to do what?
I'm sorry. It's a 4-letter word.
Wow.
You have to follow the plan, put forth the required effort. And if it is your full-time thing in the franchise, well, guess what? You kind of need to put full-time effort.
Got it.
If that franchise is saying, hey, a semi-absentee owner, we need probably 15 hours a week from you, guess what? You need to be around 15 hours a week.
Well, and I think here's another question. So 15 hours a week may be different for me than it is for you. Right. Do they specify? I feel like that's probably a roller coaster. Maybe one week it's 15, maybe another it's 20, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 5.
But it could be 6 in the morning while you're having breakfast. It could be in the evening and you're checking emails or you're checking
like
metrics.
You, there are kids at karate and you got an hour of nothing.
Right. Because really watching karate is riveting with that. But it is, or you're sitting at soccer practice, also riveting, right? Whatever it might be.
Or you're sitting on a plane for that job that's paying you.
Right. And so, but whatever that is, you've got some flexibility, but it's things that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. What are you not good at or not want to do? But I think also understanding, are there any things, if it's 15 hours a week, just for argument's sake, is there anything in particular you want to do? Maybe you would do like getting out and connecting with some people, right? Maybe if there's a storefront, you like, man, I really like going in to, do the inventory, or it can be whatever you want, but if there's something that you enjoy doing, just as importantly, what you don't, you gotta share that as you're going through this journey.
And I think if you decide to search franchises on your own, as the audience may, or use someone to go along that journey with you, like your organization, knowing that before you go in, that kind of gives you the checklist for the discussion. Like if it's not going to match these markers for me, then maybe it's not the right fit as much as I would love it to be, right? Like, hey, I really want to own a brand not to be named, but I have to employ, 10, 16-year-olds and running no, I don't want to. Thanks.
I think just in general with franchising, it's that chance to have a blank slate. Right.
Okay.
And it's kind of cheesy, but what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. What's that dream scenario? And if you are like with John Duffy last week at Citywide, well, you've got to be able to kind of go hunt for business.
Oh, you said another 4-letter word.
As an owner. And some people are going to go, oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But there are people who are like, let's go. That's awesome. Right. And so whatever it is, you have to really like kind of be honest with yourself of what am I good at? What do I enjoy? People I'm around. And even if it's semi-absentee, you're spending less time, but those things are still equally as important.
Right. And I think that's the key for this episode, right? For our viewers to understand that it is doable. The franchise is not set up to be that way, but this is a word that we'll talk about. And maybe key for the next episode is validation. Like, what the heck is that? Like, am I pretty? No, that's not the type of validation that we're talking about. But if you go and start looking at different franchises, there are people that are operating them, maybe not in your backyard, maybe in a different state. They may not be the same background or pedigree that you are. The key is being able to talk to other owners that are in some aspect running their business the same way that you would want to, with the same limited flexibility per se.
Yeah, it's if anybody is ever looking at a franchise and they go on their own to try to find one, well, first, shame on you, call Fran Coach.
Oh,
but
goodness.
If they do and they're talking to other owners in that brand are not part of the process, should you run or run really fast?
Right. So I've done that. I'm on the other side, right? I've been part of the franchise system, talking to owners for many, many years. And I say, no matter what I'm telling you, it's all going to sound wonderful and great. And it's going to align with all your goals and your visions. But the reality of this is you want to get to the space where you're talking to people just like you, not talking to me.
Doing what you would eventually
I'm telling
be
you
doing.
exactly how to do it from the business and the box. They're going to tell you how they're doing it for them to fit their lifestyle. Again, this goes back to the whole 360 show, is how to help people understand how they can become a franchise owner, how franchises operate, and then how your business can be a franchise. And that's something for business owners that are watching this to think, okay, how can I set up that model for them so that they understand, hey, a lot of people start businesses and they have jobs too. So that's probably worse.
Am I okay with that for my franchise versus, and it's okay to not be. Again, it can be whatever you want.
I love this conversation, and it's definitely buzzwords flipping around the franchise community about semi-absentee, semi-passive.
Right.
Like it's the wave of the future, because the gig economy was a thing and still is a thing.
Right. And the short answer is yes, you can have a job and have the franchise.
Yes. And
not every franchise is open to that. And there's a lot of things, but the beauty of it is you got to make it whatever you want.
Your journey.
Right. So that's it. Danielle, did we have any of our wonderful watchers have a question?
We did have a question from John, and he did ask what were the top 5 industries to own a franchise.
So we get that with our clients asking similar questions. What's the top this? What's the best of that? And if I'm being really honest, you know what I do every time?
Oh, I can only imagine.
I kind of roll my eyes.
Just like I just did.
So it's a great question. It's the answer kind of annoys people because there's really not one truly best or top. There are.
What are we saying makes the best?
Because what's the best for you is not what's best
maybe
for me.
Maybe it makes a lot of money. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has a lot of consumer branding.
Look at John and Citywide, right? If you are bad at business development,
whoa,
that you got no shot, right? So that was clearly best for John and his family because they're killing it. But I would be terrible at that if I had to go.
And there's a bunch of lists, right? There's I read this the other day on a chain that we're on. It's like the Entrepreneur 500 list comes out every year, and it takes each industry and tells you what are the top 5 brands in each industry. It's a good piece to start your research with, but it's not the thing that you should use as you're deciding.
No, and we're going to get a chance to talk through a whole bunch of more franchisors coming
I love
up
guests.
very soon.
I don't have to sit here.
Exactly. But until then, that's semi-absentee ownership. That's Danielle Wright.
That's me.
I'm Tim Parmeter, and this is the Franchising 360 Show.